Introduction Chapter: No Escape Possible. In a secluded village in South India, a low-caste poor family of 5 persons lives in isolation, trapped under the rule of a man whose alcohol addiction dictates every moment of their existence. This is not a story of exaggeration or fiction. It is a true story. It is a true story about a family in South India belonging to the lowest level of the lowest caste in the Hindu caste system, the community of waste scavengers. It is, however, also a story that occurs in many villages and many caste levels throughout India, one that many girls in villages silently endure, unseen and unheard. Laws have been implemented in India to restrict and eliminate such tragedy, but in remote villages where conservative traditions persist, such laws cannot easily be enforced. Village society, that lives by the rules of the caste system, will not do much to change the endurances of the innocent victims on the lowest rungs, being the village girls. State authorities have introduced women's police and women's stations and women's hostels to help and grant safe haven to those victims. But fear of victims can be even stronger, restricting them from taking advantage of this support network. Words of support and empowerment are uttered and expressed in YouTube and on the internet, and also by politicians around the country, but such do not reach people who don't own a smartphone and have no access to internet, or are denied such access by their families. While this story too many never reach these people, it is another attempt at providing exit routes to our sisters in other villages. While the story is true, the names and places have been changed, and the proposed avenue of escape, which has been successfully taken by many village girls under similar circumstances, has not yet reached the ears of this family. It is a guide, a map for any girl who faces restrictions, suffocation, and hopelessness, to show that escape is possible. Quotes from powerful, fearless women across history will frame this journey, offering words of courage for those seeking to break free. Chapter 1: Realities in a Family of an Alcoholic. 3 sisters, Leela, Kavitha, and Meena, live with their mother, father, and grandmother in complete isolation. Not because the village has shunned them, but because their father, Raymond, has forced them into solitude. Raymond is a waste scavenger, a job that places them at the lowest rung of society within a suffocating caste system, into which people are born and cannot escape from. He earns money but does not share it with his family. Every rupee vanishes into alcohol, leaving his wife and daughters with only pennies to survive on. Chapter 2: An Absolute Control Over Each Family Member. Raymond dictates everything. They only get a minimal amount of money for household expenses. They must wear long dresses, covering their arms and legs at all times. They are forbidden from talking to outsiders. They cannot make friends, visit other homes, or invite anyone inside theirs. They must go straight home after school. No lingering, no laughter, no joy. Beauty is restricted, no jewelry, no perfumes, no signs of self-expression. His anger is swift and terrifying, his presence a cloud of fear. Their mother, Selvi, has long stopped arguing, knowing that resistance brings only punishment. The grandmother, once strong, now whispers prayers under her breath, hoping for miracles that never come. The daughters do not dream, they simply survive. A quote from an unknown source states, "You were given this life because you are strong enough to live it." But how do you find strength when your own father controls your every breath? Chapter 3. The Joy of the Pongal Harvest Festival and the Big Shock. One afternoon, as the Pongal Harvest Festival fills the village with celebration, the sisters decide to reclaim just one moment of joy. They work tirelessly, weaving vibrant Rangoli designs, filling their doorstep with swirling colours and delicate patterns. For the first time in months, they feel happiness. But then Raymond arrived, drunk, his eyes clouded with fury. He yelled when seeing how much coloured powder had been used to create the artwork. What a waste of money and time! Without hesitation, he grabbed a bucket of water and poured it over their creation. The colours bled into the earth. Then he collapsed, unconscious, onto the ruined art, his body a monument to everything their world had lost to alcohol. The sisters watch in silence. Their one attempt at expression, at beauty, at hope, erased in seconds. Their mother wipes tears from her eyes. The grandmother says nothing, and the daughters feel the walls around them closing in once more. A quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of a US president, states, "No one can make you feel small without your consent. But how do they resist when their entire lives have been reduced to silence?" A quote from an unknown source states, "Some women are lost in the fire. Some women are built from it. And they would not be lost. They would find a way out." Chapter 4. The First Whisper of Rebellion. That night, the sisters whisper among themselves, voices trembling. If we could make wishes come true, what would we ask for? They do not wish for freedom. They do not wish for wealth. They wish for one thing: make our father stop drinking alcohol, because they know without his addiction, everything would change. But how does a girl fight against something so deeply embedded in her home? A quote by Bob Marley, Jamaican singer and songwriter, states, "You never really know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice." And so they choose strength. Chapter 5. The Sisters' Strategy. They knew they could not physically stop him. They knew they could not beg him to change. He had ignored their tears too many times before. But they had each other. A quote from an unknown source states, "When women support each other, incredible things happen." And together, they created a plan. Chapter 6. Step 1. Gaining small independence. Since their father controlled the money, they had no savings. But they had skills: embroidery, weaving, stitching. So without telling him, they began secretly sewing hand-woven fabrics, hiding them beneath their school books. At school, they whispered to other girls, asking them to bring fabrics from their homes in exchange for their work. Their textiles slowly reached the village market without their father ever noticing. A quote by Claire Booth Luce, an American ambassador, states, "A woman's best protection is a little money of her own." And though their earnings were small, they held power they had never tasted before. Chapter 7. Step 2. Controlling his access to alcohol. Every day, their father handed them coins to buy food, but always kept extra for alcohol. The sisters started adjusting his requests. If he gave them 50 rupees, They spent 45 rupees on household needs and lied about rising prices. 5 rupees were put aside in a savings box. They repeated this process for weeks, shaving off enough money to slow his drinking without triggering his rage. They whispered to themselves. A quote by Bob Molly states, "You never really know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice." And they chose strength. Chapter 8. Step 3. Seeking allies in secret. Their grandmother, once too afraid to defy her son, began listening to them. She spread whispers in the village, connecting them with an elder who knew how to intervene in addiction cases. The girls found an unexpected supporter in their schoolteacher, who introduced them to a nearby rehabilitation center, one willing to help them navigate the process of confronting Raymond's drinking. They did not fight alone. Amy Tenney, a poet, states, "The world needs strong women, women who will lift and build others, who will love and be loved, who live bravely, both tender and fierce." And they became stronger with support. Chapter 9. Step 4. The confrontation. Months passed. Their father noticed the changes. His drinking had slowed, his money was disappearing, and his daughters were no longer silent shadows. One evening, as he sat outside staring at an empty bottle, the sisters stood before him for the first time. "Do you know how much we suffer because of this?" Mina asked, her voice shaking. Raymond stared at his daughters, seeing them not as children, but as forces of change. A quote by Margaret Thatcher, a former UK Prime Minister, states, "Being powerful is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, you aren't." And they did not tell him they were strong. They showed him. Chapter 10. The turning point. Their father did not stop drinking overnight. His rage did not disappear instantly. But as days passed, he saw something that had never existed before. His daughters were no longer dependent on him. They no longer asked for money. They no longer feared his rules. He had lost control over them, and for the first time, he began questioning himself. A quote by Lala Delia, best-selling author of empowerment books, states, "She remembered who she was, and the game changed. And though his change was slow, though he still struggled, though he still fought his demons, he had begun to change. Because his daughters had forced the change upon him." Conclusion. The guide for girls facing unbreakable struggles. This story isn't just about breaking free from an oppressive household. It's about finding resourcefulness, resilience, and hidden pathways to independence, even when escape seems impossible. And knowing that. A quote by Nora Ephron, American journalist, states, "Above all, be the heroine of your life, not the victim." A quote by Shirley Chisholm, first black woman elected to U.S. Congress, states, "We must reject not only the stereotypes that others hold of us, but also the stereotypes that we hold of ourselves." A quote by Rupi Kaur, a Canadian poet, states, "We all move forward when we recognize how resilient and striking the women around us are. Even in the darkest circumstances, even when freedom seems unreachable, women rise. And when one woman rises, others follow."